You know, for years, we've been told the UK housing crisis is all about two things: high prices and not enough houses. But what if I told you something else is going on, right under the surface? The classic small landlord is vanishing, and a new, much more powerful buyer is quietly taking their place. So today, we're going to follow the data and find out who's really buying Britain's homes.
Okay, let's just start with the question that I'm pretty sure hits close to home for a lot of you. Whether you're trying to rent a place or even buy one, it just feels impossible out there, right? So why is it so competitive? Well, the answer starts with a pretty shocking number.
284,000. That's it. That is the total number of homes available to rent in the entire country. That is an all-time low. And listen, this isn't just a random blip on the radar. It's a huge symptom of a much bigger shift happening in the market, and it all begins with an exodus.
Yeah, what we're seeing right now is something people are calling the Great Landlord Exodus. The very people who've supplied most of Britain's rental homes for decades are now selling their properties in massive, unprecedented numbers. So what's pushing them out? And more importantly, what happens to the people who live in those homes? This quote from the National Residential Landlords Association, man, it just hits the nail on the head. This isn't just about market trends and spreadsheets. Every single one of these sales has a real human cost. In fact, new government figures show that landlords selling up is now the #1 cause of homelessness in England. Now have a look at this, because what's really wild is just how fast this is all happening. In early 2024, just under 10% of all homes for sale were ex-rentals, okay? Just 1 year later, that has shot up to over 15%. That is a huge jump, and it shows this trend isn't just happening, it's speeding up. And this right here is the crucial piece of the puzzle. You might think, well, okay, one landlord sells, another one just buys it, right? But the data shows that's not what's happening at all. Get this, a whopping 97% of these homes, once they're sold, they're gone. They do not come back to the rental market. So where are they going? Well, first, we have to understand the pressure cooker that's forcing all this. The whole property market right now is stuck in what experts are calling an affordability trap. And it's not just about house prices anymore. It's this whole pileup of crushing costs that's basically frozen the market for regular people, and it's forcing landlords to make a really tough choice: lose money or just get out. And the key concept here is something called transactional friction. Just think of it like a kind of financial superglue that's gummed up the works of the property ladder. It's that mountain of extra costs, beyond the price tag, that makes just moving from one house to another way too expensive for millions of people. And here's how it all just stacks up. If you're a homeowner trying to move, it's a total cascade of fees. You've got stamp duty, estate agent fees, legal costs, fees for the new mortgage. It just goes on and on. For so many people, the equity they built up gets completely eaten by the cost of the move itself. So they stay put, and that traps the housing supply. For landlords, though, there's a whole other layer of pressure.
What we're seeing is a perfect storm for them. Interest rates have gone through the roof, tripling mortgage costs for some. Then there are tax changes, like Section 24, which basically means they can't deduct their mortgage interest costs from their rental income anymore. That sends their tax bill soaring. You add in tougher regulations, and for your typical small landlord, the business just doesn't add up anymore.
And this quote just nails it. New affordability rules mean a lot of these landlords can't even get a new mortgage deal. They're basically mortgage prisoners stuck on these crazy expensive rates. And like Angus Stewart says, they're left with two logical options: hike the rent up like crazy or just sell. And we already know which one they're choosing. So, if thousands of small landlords are selling up and all those homes are leaving the private rental market, who on earth is buying them? This is where the whole story takes a really dramatic turn. Because as the little guys are being forced out, a completely new kind of landlord is moving in. And trust me, they operate on a whole different level. First up, you've got sovereign wealth funds. These are gigantic state-owned investment funds from places like Qatar, Singapore, Norway. They look at UK housing and see a politically stable, legally safe long-term bet. They're not just buying a house, they're buying up entire apartment blocks, entire developments to hold for decades. Next up, pension funds. Yep, the very funds that manage our retirement savings are becoming some of the biggest landlords in the country. Big names like Legal & General and Aviva are pouring billions into UK rental housing, and why wouldn't they? The steady, inflation-proof income they get from rent is the perfect way to pay out pensions for years to come. And finally, there's private equity. Now, these firms are targeting the lower-value homes, the exact kind of properties that first-time buyers are desperately trying to compete for.
They swoop in, buy up portfolios from those burned-out landlords we talked about, and roll them into these huge, professionally managed rental businesses.
So you see, the motivation here is completely different. For these massive institutions, a home isn't a place for a family to grow up in. It's a financial asset. It's a 30-year income stream. They're attracted by the UK's chronic housing shortage because it basically guarantees them a captive market of tenants for years. And, believe it or not, government policy is actually helping them do it.
Just take a look at this. If an individual, a small landlord, buys one extra property, they have to pay the standard stamp duty plus a 3% surcharge. But if an institution buys 6 or more properties in one go, they get to pay the lower, non-residential rates. It is a huge financial advantage built right into our tax system that lets them easily outbid smaller buyers. What we are witnessing is a one-way transfer of property. Once these homes are bought up by an institution, they become part of a giant portfolio. They are almost certainly never coming back onto the open market for a regular family to buy, and that has some really profound consequences for every single one of us.
I mean, this slide just says it all. If you're trying to buy your first home today, you're not just up against another couple down the street or a local landlord. No, you are now bidding against global capital. You're competing with a sovereign wealth fund from Qatar, with your own pension fund. It is a fundamental shift in who you're actually competing with.
And you can see the domino effect right here. It all starts with new rules hitting small landlords. That forces them to sell up in massive numbers. As a result, the rental supply absolutely plummets. This, in turn, pushes up rents and, tragically, homelessness. And right into that gap step the big institutional investors, who snap up a permanent stock of rental properties, and the whole cycle is complete.
So, the big question is, can this be fixed? Is there any way to unfreeze the market for ordinary people and maybe get that property ladder working again? Well, experts argue that the real focus needs to be on tackling that transactional friction we talked about earlier.
So the solutions being talked about are all about structural change. Things like a total overhaul of stamp duty, creating real incentives for people to downsize, and maybe even using tax credits to help with those huge moving costs. Another big idea is investing in tech to finally make buying and selling a house faster and cheaper. Really, the goal is simple. Make it easier for people, not just corporations, to move house.
And all of this brings us to one final, really fundamental question. The data shows a huge shift is happening, one that's redefining what a house even is in Britain. So we have to ask, is a home a place for a family to live and build a life? Or is it now just a financial asset, a 30-year income stream for a global fund? The answer to that is going to shape the kind of country we live in.